The Galactic Empire prided itself on control. For 10,000 cycles, it had ruled the stars through bureaucracy and fear, its dominion stretching across spiral arms. Dozens of species swore fealty, offering resources, labor, and loyalty. The Empire's rules were absolute. Its secrets, however, were many. Behind the diplomatic facade, a darker economy thrived, one that valued rarity, sentience, and suffering. Humans had once been a footnote in the Empire's history, a fledgling species from a death world. They had erupted into the galactic stage with violence, resilience, and terrifying ingenuity. They were labeled unstable, dangerous, unfit for integration. Earth was placed under quarantine. Trade was banned. But long before the order could be enforced, millions were taken, abducted from cities, space stations, deep orbit colonies. Some vanished into scientific facilities, others into labor rings. The rest were sold. Of all the human variants, none fetched higher prices than unbroken children. And today, in a palace carved from the bones of the planetary moon, the rarest of them all was presented. She was barely 16 standard cycles. Her eyes were defiant, her frame bruised but upright. She had survived 6 months in a mining pit before being captured in a raid. Her captors didn't understand why she kept surviving. They didn't care. They knew her value. The hall was filled with delegates, nobles, syndicate heads, creatures of silken talons, of ink and bone. Some sipped toxin-rich cocktails as the auctioneer read her vital statistics. Genetic purity, planetary origin, confirmed Terran descent. Her number was listed, not her name. She didn't look at the crowd. She looked at the ceiling, counting the seconds. The bidding began. 3 million credits. 5. 8. Each bid came with laughter, mockery, stories of how they'd tamed the wildness from her. One bitter bragged of owning a male once, until it bit through its restraints and bled out in his chambers. Another scoffed, claiming humans were exaggerated. At 12 million credits, the room fell quiet. A new bid appeared. The terminal glitched before resolving. No species ID, no biometric trace, just a number. The auctioneer hesitated. Protocol dictated bids be verified, but 12 million was unprecedented. Greed overcame caution. He accepted. The lights flickered. A distant hum vibrated through the floor. A hush spread. Above the moon palace, an unmarked vessel slipped out of void space. It bore no design signature, no emissions, no propulsion wake, just mass, dark and silent. Planetary sensors failed to detect it. Orbital defense systems did not respond. They were no longer functional. Inside the hall, the temperature dropped by several degrees. The auctioneer tried to continue the ceremony, forcing levity, a toast to record sales. No one laughed. Then the screens went black. Every display in the building cut simultaneously. A single line appeared. You took one of ours. Gasps. Confusion. Security forces scrambled. The building's perimeter was locked down. Shuttles scrambled. Only a few made it off the ground before being vaporized by invisible fire. No light, no sound, just annihilation. The auctioneer demanded explanations. No answers came, only static. Then came the voice. It wasn't transmitted through speakers. It resonated from the walls, the floor, their own auditory nerves. A human voice, cold, methodical. For every child taken, we take 10 of yours. For every name stripped, we erase 10,000. The girl didn't flinch. Her eyes remained locked on the ceiling. She whispered a number, 57. The first explosion was subterranean. It ruptured the foundation, destabilizing grav anchors. The palace shuddered. Alien dignitaries fled in all directions, trampling over one another. Security tried to form lines, but their weapons malfunctioned. In the upper atrium, the ceiling collapsed. Figures descended, black armor, no insignia, no skin visible. Their weapons didn't fire projectiles or plasma. They emitted directed kinetic pulses. Bones liquefied, armor shattered. No warning shots. The girl remained still as 2 of them approached. They scanned her without speaking, then nodded. One handed her a small black disc. She gripped it tightly. The aliens begged. Some offered surrender. Others screamed for backup. But no one answered. Communications across the sector were dark. The humans moved to the palace like a force of nature, calculated, efficient. They did not pursue those who fled. They let fear carry the message. In less than 20 minutes, the palace was silent. Fires burned without oxygen. Debris floated midair as grav systems failed entirely. Only one thing remained untouched: the auction platform. The girl stood on it, flanked by her rescuers. The voice returned, this time across every remaining comm frequency in the sector. This is your reckoning. The feed was hijacked system-wide. Billions watched as the screen displayed images of similar auction houses, slaver ships, labor camps. Then each blinked red and vanished, locations confirmed destroyed. The galaxy didn't understand what had happened. Rumors followed. Some said the girl was royalty. Others claimed she was a clone of an ancient Terran warlord. But one fact could not be denied. A human child was sold in an imperial auction, and in return, an entire syndicate was erased. The Empire issued denials. They blamed rogue factions, data corruption, even insurgent species. But every investigation team sent to the site vanished. Every surveillance probe shorted out. Every attempt to analyze the black ship's data footprint failed. Trade routes were disrupted. Security networks crashed. And in the shadows, quiet whispers of fear grew. A name resurfaced. One thought extinct. One struck from records long ago. Terrans. Not humans. Not Earthborns. Terrans. The word now meant something different. It meant vengeance. Some council members argued for war. Others insisted on diplomacy. But the ship had left no trace. The attackers gave no coordinates, no identities, no demands. Only a message. You auctioned a child. We auctioned your legacy. A year later, the Moon Palace was declared a no-fly zone. No one dared rebuild. Wreckage still drifted in orbit. Surveillance satellites showed a single item left untouched on the central platform, a metal plate. Engraved in ancient Terran dialect, it read, "She was never for sale." And beneath it, coordinates. Not for a planet. For every other known auction site in the galaxy. One by one, they disappeared. News of the Moon Palace massacre rippled through the Empire like a shockwave. Entire sectors went into lockdown. Syndicate had scrambled to erase records, destroy archives, hide assets. Slavers vanished from known trade lanes. Panic, disguised as prudence, spread among the powerful. But none of it mattered. The Terrans were already inside. They didn't move like armies. They didn't occupy or negotiate. They didn't wear flags or colors. They appeared where they were least expected. On data hubs, in orbital security centers, inside vaults thought impenetrable. Each strike was surgical. Records erased, facilities vaporized, overseers killed. They left no survivors, no salvage, only silence. The Empire's intelligence apparatus, the Hierophant Order, attempted to track them. Their best analysts couldn't explain how an unregistered human faction bypassed protocols, encrypted systems, and wiped black market nodes that had thrived for centuries. Agents went missing. Observation posts were disabled. In 2 weeks, 17 major auction houses ceased to exist. On the political floor, the High Lords demanded answers. The Empress convened an emergency assembly. Speeches were made. Blame was deflected. But the fear in the chamber was palpable. Everyone knew this wasn't rebellion. It was retribution. A single act had awakened a sleeping Leviathan. Behind closed doors, contingency programs were revived. Projects long buried were re-examined. Ones involving human biology, psychological warfare, hybrid operatives. Files once sealed under extinction-class protocols were decrypted. One name appeared more than any other: Project Revenant. The program had been shelved after human resistance cells destroyed its central facility a century ago. But its fragments survived: data, tissue samples, behavioral logs. Revenant was the Empire's attempt to copy what it feared most: the Terran will to endure. The Council approved resurrection. Scientists, handlers, exobiologists were conscripted. New test subjects were acquired. Not humans, too risky. Other species, modified to emulate Terran neurology, subjected to Deathworld simulations. They failed. Most went mad. Some begged to die. Others turned on their creators. Meanwhile, the Terran campaign accelerated. A deep space slave caravan, escorted by 3 Imperial war cruisers, disappeared mid-jump. Surveillance logs showed something impossible, an interdiction field activating within null space, collapsing the transition corridor. It had never been done before. Entire fleets were designed to avoid that scenario, and yet it had been executed. When scavenger drones arrived weeks later, all that remained were debris fields, and a black box transmitted a message on loop. Transaction canceled. The message was picked up by Outer Rim pirate bands. Even criminals, long unbothered by Imperial edicts, began turning in humans they had hidden, not out of conscience, but terror. One syndicate dropped off 27 captives at a neutral relief station, then detonated their own compound, leaving behind a wall marked with blood. We are not part of this. In a fortified fortress on Arx Prime, the Empress summoned her most secretive advisor, a being known only as the Archivist. They spoke in a dead tongue, one older than the Empire itself. The Empress demanded context, history, patterns. The Archivist explained. Before the Empire, there had been other dominions. All had risen, expanded, consumed, and each had met the Terrans. None survived. Not because Terrans waged war, but because they answered it in ways no other species could understand. They do not fight for control, the Archivist said. They fight because you thought you could control them. The Empress dismissed him. She ordered total mobilization. Every fleet near the Outer Rim was dispatched. Entire systems placed under martial law. The message was clear: show dominance or invite collapse. The fleets arrived at the last known coordinates of Terran activity. They deployed with protocol precision, blanketing orbits, scanning every meter of space. They found nothing. For 6 days, silence. On the 7th, all units received an incoming hail. It contained no voice, no image, only data. It uploaded itself before firewalls could respond. Entire ship systems were locked. Artificial gravity inverted. Crew members fell to ceilings, broke bones. Then screens activated. Footage played. Recordings of the auction. Children in chains. Executions. Medical dissections. Cataloged and time-stamped. Then the feed changed. One by one, the Imperial ships showed their own logs, edited by the Terrans. Private communications. Bribes. Torture footage. Proof of complicity. Then the countdown began. The fleet scattered. Some tried to flee. Others opened fire on each other, blaming sabotage. When the countdown hit 0, no explosions came. Just a second message. This is what it feels like to be powerless. Half the fleet surrendered. The other half self-destructed or went dark. Empire Command lost contact with 65 capital vessels in a single day. Panic became policy. The Empire initiated Code Solstice, the extermination directive. All known Terran descendants were to be executed. All planetary records purged. All mentions of Earth or humanity erased from galactic databanks. What followed was chaos. Entire colonies rioted. Some planetary governors refused to comply. Others turned execution squads on their own military forces. The galaxy fractured. And through it all, the Terrans remained silent, until the beacon was activated. In the center of the Trivar Belt, a mining colony received a strange transmission. It was a distress call, but not from the colony. It came from beneath their feet. An ancient Terran listening post buried deep inside an asteroid. It had awakened. The colonists investigated. What they found wasn't a base. It was a memory vault, thousands of years old, filled with encrypted data, genetic samples, artifacts. The moment they breached it, a signal was broadcast. Across the stars, Terran sleeper cells activated. Not all were human. Some were hybrids. Others were AI proxies or modified life forms built to wait for a specific code. They emerged from hiding, infiltrating Imperial logistics, corrupting NAV maps, disabling weapon caches. In weeks, entire trade networks collapsed. Supply lines failed. Planetary defense grids turned against their creators. The Empire's greatest strength, its infrastructure, became its weakness. On 12 worlds, rebellions broke out simultaneously, not led by Terrans, but by species long oppressed. The Terran signal had awoken not just their agents, but hope. The Empire lost control of 3 sectors in under a month, and the girl, the one whose auction sparked it all, was seen again, not in person, as a symbol. Her image, once broadcast in chains, now showed her holding the black disc she'd received, projected across public terminals, carved into walls, encoded in satellite transmissions. No words, just her face and a number. 79. No one knew what it meant. Some said it was a number of slaver sites destroyed. Others believed it marked the countdown to something larger. Imperial leadership fragmented. The Empress's inner circle collapsed under assassination and desertion. One final plan was drafted. Locate Earth. Destroy it. End the myth. But Earth was no longer where it had been.